Netanyahu's biggest strategic mistake emerges as Lebanon Truce violations trigger Iran's ominous warning, escalating regional tensions dramatically. IRGC vows continued unbreakable support for Hezbollah fighters, posing major new security challenges for Israel's northern border. Hezbollah launches devastating counterattacks after Israel breaches fragile truce, inflicting serious damage on IDF positions. At least one Israeli soldier lies dead with 6 others wounded in Hezbollah's relentless precision-guided artillery barrages. Captured on camera, Hezbollah drones strike mere meters from Israeli rescue helicopters, showcasing lethal battlefield coordination. Spooked by escalating threats, Netanyahu enforces total lockdown, effectively shutting down northern Israel amid mounting panic. As hostilities flare up once again along the Lebanon or Israel border, Iran has vowed to continue its political and military support for Hezbollah, reaffirming its role as a key backer in the wider axis of resistance. On April 26, the commander of Iran's Quds Force, Esmail Qaani, projected a tone of confidence, insisting that the regional resistance network is now stronger and more unified than before. Qaani, speaking on the platform upscrolled, argued that the various resistance forces across the region have adapted to Israeli pressure and are operating with a higher degree of coordination. He also dismissed Israeli claims that Hezbollah has been significantly weakened by repeated cross-border strikes, portraying such statements as attempts to downplay its capabilities. The Quds Force commander stressed that Hezbollah is not fighting alone and is backed by affiliated forces from Iraq, Yemen, and other parts of the Middle East, forming a broader regional alignment. According to Qaani, supporting Hezbollah remains a top priority for Iran as the group confronts ongoing Israeli Defense Forces operations inside southern Lebanon. The Lebanon-Israel truce, first announced on April 16, has since been repeatedly violated, with most breaches reported to have come from Israeli-side operations, such as Press TV. In response, Hezbollah has continued its own military operations, launching rockets, drones, and other attacks on Israeli forces and military positions along the border. On April 26, a Hezbollah-launched drone struck near Israeli troops who were attempting to repair a disabled tank in the town of Tabor, highlighting the intensity of the ongoing clashes. The IDF said the strike killed 1 soldier and wounded 6 others, describing the incident as part of a broader pattern of drone threats in the area. The military added that more drones were launched during the evacuation of the wounded, with one being intercepted and the other detonating nearby a helicopter and ground forces without causing additional casualties. These escalating clashes have led to tighter security measures in northern Israel, with the IDF tightening access restrictions in border communities and military zones. Authorities have also limited public gatherings to 1,500 people in areas including the Galilee near the Lebanese border, citing the risk of missile and drone attacks as the main security concern. Amid high-stakes tensions with Iran, US-Israel defense ties are heading for a shakeup as both countries prepare for talks that could phase out traditional aid. Israel and the US are set to launch formal negotiations next month on a fresh defense assistance deal that will kick in once the current pact expires. This new framework is meant to replace the existing Memorandum of Understanding, which runs until the end of 2028 and locks in today's funding levels. On the Israeli side, the team will reportedly be led by Defense Ministry Director General Amir Baram, joined by Envoy Michael Leiter as a key civilian negotiator. The US delegation is expected to be headed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, with senior advisor Michael Needham helping shape the America First contours of the deal. Together, they'll design an assistance model covering the decade from 2029 through 2038, setting the rules for how much cash and cooperation Israel can count on. The current 10-year framework, signed in 2016, grants Israel $38 billion in total aid, of which $33 billion is for weapons procurement grants and $5 billion for missile defense programs. Right now, that translates into roughly $3.3 billion a year to buy major US weapons, plus about $500 million annually earmarked for joint air and missile defenses. The new framework is being built as a bridge toward ending direct American cash aid by 2038, rather than locking in another permanent cycle of grants. Under the emerging model, US money for Israeli procurement would shrink step by step each year, instead of suddenly falling off a cliff at the end of the pact. At the same time, both sides expect to deepen joint development of cutting-edge weapons, trying to preserve Israel's qualitative edge even as pure cash transfers decline. Planned cooperation is likely to focus on high-energy laser systems, next-generation air defense interceptors, and other technologies that could change the game against drones and missiles. But Israeli officials warn that no one can accurately predict what the battlefield will demand in a dozen years, especially with Iran, Hezbollah, and Gaza all still volatile. Today, American military aid equals roughly 0.5% of Israel's GDP and around 15% of its overall defense budget. Still a major pillar, but not the whole structure. For decades, that stream of money has symbolized Washington's commitment to Israel's qualitative military advantage, especially against larger regional foes. US defense firms have also profited heavily, since most of the funds have to be spent on American manufacturers, feeding orders straight into their production lines. However, the Russia-Ukraine war has flooded US arms plants with European orders, making them far less reliant on Israeli demand to keep assembly lines running. At the same time, bipartisan enthusiasm for big aid packages to Israel has visibly eroded in Washington, with more lawmakers questioning the blank check approach. Progressive Democrats have attacked Israel's conduct in Gaza, citing humanitarian and legal concerns and demanding conditions on future US military support. Some Republicans now argue that unwavering support for Israel clashes with Trump's America First message, especially as domestic priorities and other wars compete for funds. In Tel Aviv, there is growing anxiety that Trump may be the last truly staunch pro-Israel president for a while, making this aid round feel like a closing window of opportunity. Israeli defense sources think the core talks could last about 4 months, if new security crises with Iran or Hezbollah don't derail the schedule yet again. One key goal is to make US financial aid hit zero by 2038 in a controlled way, avoiding a sudden rupture that might shock markets or embolden Israel's enemies.